Hello everyone. The recently concluded Women's T20 World Cup did not punch or bring any surprises. As expected, the Australian and English women's sides were dominant and reached the final, although Australia came out head and shoulders above everyone else. Now, they have consistently kept their record and sustained their record as the most successful women's team ever. But there were a few stories that nobody really circled in on, a few inspirations that might have not caught your eye. And in this episode, we try to bring those stories to light. Did you know that the neurologist quit her ER job weeks before this World Cup began and then came into the tournament to take 2 wickets in 3 matches consecutively? Did you know that a 19-year-old ended up as the tournament's top scorer next to the likes of Mooney and Wyatt Hodge? Did you know that a side walked out under a 21-match losing streak and it took the brilliance of one individual to break that curse? Did you know that a team that had for a decade only won when its star player scored, won 3 group games without even needing her to play? One of the players during the press conferences in the tournament mentioned that she had been fighting clinical depression and nearly walked away from the game entirely. In this episode, we cover those stories and kind of extract what lessons and inspirations we can gain. My name is Hassan Ali. I'm joined by Sharan Kumar and Abhishek Kalar, and behind the camera, like always, is Rupesh Atmuri. This is Cricktake. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get right into it. Abhishek, why don't you start us off with our first short story of this episode from the Netherlands?
Thank you, Hassan. As you rightly mentioned about a player who quit her job, her name is Caroline de Lange, a classical leg spinner from Netherlands. She graduated from medical school in the month of March, right? And she was serving as a doctor in the neurology department, emergency ward, right? And then from there and throughout her qualifier, she had in mind that if at all they are qualified for the World Cup, she had to quit her job. So on 1st May she quit her job to join team, and then straight away she made headlines with her story. Like in the presser, when the captain was asked about a player who quit her job, how is she feeling? Then the captain replied funnily that she is happy to be here. Even though she resigned her job, her dream of playing for country is what stays ahead for her. So she is happy to be here than securing her job. So to give you context of her record in the tournament, she took consistently 2 wickets for the first 3 matches, and then she went wicketless in the 4th match, and then she again took a wicket in the first match. Like for example, I'm talking about consistency, right? She took these 2 wickets against a quality team like Bangladesh and India and Australia, right? So even though they were very much close to beating the Bangladesh, right? They were very much close to beating Bangladesh, who themselves made name in this tournament. We will come to that in the later part. And then with her performance, she took internet blown away with the quality that she possesses and the skills she has. Having a player like this will definitely help her teammates, like having a doctor who has having studied medicine. These things will come handy in a player's conversation or the uplifting of the team's performance. Well, when there is a low phase going on. So yeah, she is the one who I personally liked very much, and her story really inspired me. Like once I was also dreaming of becoming a cricketer, that did not happen. We usually give up, but her consistency, her perseverance to continue chasing her dream to play for country has been exceptional. We can say that she's a modern day inspiration for all the girls out there who has thinking to take cricket as a career, right? Even though their board have enough, not even board have not much of a funds, but ICC are making sure that the teams are getting more exposure, and they were very happy to just participate in this one, as it was their historic first time appearing in the uh, Women's T20 World Cup. Now, when we talk about inspiration, we do have another player, her captain of the team. She even scored a back-to-back 50s in the league matches, right? Baptiste. You might have familiar with the surname, right? So this is the surname that you know. Yes, she is the cousin of Baptiste. She comes from a cricket heritage, you can say. Though, but what stood out for me is throughout the World Cup matches, their league matches, she was the one who was holding one side, who was holding one side, and she was playing very good cricket. See, people talk about strike rate in the modern games, modern T20 game and all. We know that, but she ended up scoring 175 runs, and she is the 11th in the highest run scorer. Like, this is a huge win for an associate nation player who are amongst the run, who got the taste of playing bigger countries like Australia, India for the first time. So, and having scored runs against them will definitely boost their confidence going ahead. Yeah, they like this. There are many stories who have been doing who have done their master's job to get to the to get to their job security, but at the end, in order to play for the country, have sacrificed their job and started playing cricket. So with this, like, I would like to ask Hassan to take ahead for the next story.
Well, I don't have as many details as you do, but I would like to talk about Ireland's Orla Prendergast. Orla Prendergast is only 24. Ireland's all-rounder. I would say the standout find in this tournament for them. Before I talk a little bit about her, it's important to understand that this was Ireland's first Women's T20 World Cup appearance after 12 years. And in those 12 years, they hadn't won a single game. This tournament too also started in the same way for them, where they lost their opening game to Bangladesh. However, when they came up against West Indies, arguably a side that is head and shoulders above them, they had different plans. Ireland took on West Indies at the Bristol County ground. Up until this match, Ireland had lost 21 consecutive T20 games, right? They had never won a T20 World Cup game against any nation, full stop. But to start off with, Ireland did their first job very well and very correctly, where they restricted the West Indian women's side for 128 for 7. Cara Murray took 2 for 13 and Amy Maguire took 2 for 22. But in the chase, there was a little bit of jitters. Amy Hunter started the innings well, but it was the arrival of Orla Prendergast at the crease which changed things around. Orla scored 63 of 44 balls, that included 8 fours and 2 sixes, and it was her second 50 of the tournament. And she, with this record, with this score, was able to cross 2,000 T20I runs, becoming the first Irish woman to do so and joining a very exclusive club of international women cricketers. Though she could not finish the game against West Indies and she was caught at deep square leg for 63 with still 21 needed of 28 balls, she had done the job. Her teammates Rebecca Stokel and Louisa Little were able to go and finish the game off with more than 11 balls to spare. The reason we talk about this and this specific individual is because that it is no small feat for an associate women's side to beat the West Indians, who are 2-time champions in the past. But it is an even bigger achievement for an Irish women's player, an associate nation player, to cross 2,000 T20I runs. And that's why I chose this story to be discussed in our episode.
Thank you, Hassan, for a story that you have told about the Ireland team breaking 21 matches streak. I would like to share a story of the Captain Carnivals when they were asked about what are your plans for this World Cup. The captain, Gabby Lewis, happily answered that the aim is to first try to get first win for Ireland, right? And everyone started laughing, but you can see the hunger in her eyes when she told about that. And to talk about another captain who led her team very well throughout this tournament is Gabby Lewis. Even she scored 2 to 3 50s in the tournament, and she has been phenomenal with her batting. Just wanted to share that one as we were talking about that one. Now I would like to ask Sharan to take up the story that we were talking in the intro regarding a player who was in a clinical depression and almost thought of quitting the job.
Thank you. The story from the Netherlands, the story from the Ireland, which shows like when both are speaking about how women are trying to catch up with a career and trying to play sports, and with no history in a cricket of no history with a winning streak, where Ireland is coming up with a 21 losses and still trying to be there and trying to set an example, the example of persistence. One, setting up with a career, one, persistence to hang in there and show that we can play cricket. So we will get a results eventually. The stories from Netherlands and Ireland pretty much shows, and Abhishek was mentioning this will be the story which gonna inspire the coming generation. I have seen the women and the kids in a recent days. The girls has been taking the sports pretty seriously than our generations. They are the parents of these generations are already considering their kids sports as a career, whereas like a 10, 20, 15 years ago, it was a whole different story. So it's good to see that, and whatever you are mentioned will be great examples for the women or the kids who are gonna take sports as their career. So when you are considering something to be as your career, it's gonna come up with a multiple factor and effects on your life. So one of the effect which we need to speak about is a mental health. So we are only speaking about something which is a positive side of a sports. It also comes with a baggage of a mental health. For example, I need to speak about Shreyanka Patil. I'm not gonna be speaking about Shreyanka Patil just because she has a roots from Kalburgi, the place where I belong to. I wanna speak about the journey, how a cricketer or a sports star having a baggage of a mental health things, and they have to fight not only to be fit on the field with their physical health, but also to be strong and compact with their mental health. So I want to touch on a story how it has been started. She is 2002 born, where she comes from a pedigree of a cricket playing family. Her father is a coach and her brother takes up the sports very early. From year 10, she started picking up the bat, ball, whatever she can. So she comes with a pedigree of having a sports background. She started being a medium pacer, then turned into a leg spinner, and then she became an off spinner just a couple of weeks before the selection, where she has met her guru slash coach Arjun Dev, who worked on her action and made her an off spinner. So the story was going pretty much. She selected for under 17 state teams. Then she represented senior domestic for Karnataka against Pondicherry. Everything was smooth, and she ended up in play. She ended up picked by RCB in WPL team. She made a very rough debut, but in a very next year, she had an purple cap for RCB. No RCB fan will ever forget her spell in a Mumbai Indians match or in a final against DC match with a whole hand was taped, when we know that she is facing an injury, but still she had an impact on the match. That's not the story which I want to speak about. The story I want to speak about is what followed after that. 2024, she had a purple cap, and very next, within couple of months, when she was playing an Asia Cup match against Pakistan, she had an injury, because of which she stayed out of an active cricket for 16 months. She missed 2025 WPL, and when she was unable to play cricket for 16 months, she has to grow through a clinical depression. Nobody was knowing it and nobody ever expressed about it, but she has a courage to guts to speak about these issues. When recently a match against Pakistan, when a presenter asked about her performance, clinical performance against one of the biggest margin victory which India ever had against Pakistan. So when the presenter was asking about her performance, her comeback, she has mentioned that I was going through a depression where I felt like quitting the game. This is the pain she is going through. She is like, at these injuries, I felt like quitting the game. She didn't hesitate to accept the fact that she was going through depression and a mental health. Still mental health is a taboo in most of the countries and not able to accept the fact that people are going through these things. But at the age of 23, she accepted the fact that she had a courage to accept that she is going through depression, and still she had an energy or a love towards the game which pushed her boundaries, and the support system made her to play sports and be hanging there. But unfortunately, right after this match, this presentation, she got her injury on her right ankle. So again, she has gone back to the stages. So we hope her to recover well. She has also set a very good example that cricket comes with a lot of cricket is not only about the sunshine and rainbows. It also comes with a certain effects on the physical and mental health, and she will lead a upcoming generation how to handle these failures and these kind of mental health issues. So I just wanted to share a story about Shreyanka Patil during this episode.
Thank you, Sharon, for sharing that story. Mental health, I think, has become more and more of a important topic in the world of sports. I sometimes wonder what players in the past did to deal with such things, because, as you said, it's been taboo, especially in South Asian countries where mental health still isn't taken as seriously as it should be. And it's quite interesting that it's not taken that seriously, because the pressure that is there in Asian countries is also incomparable to what you see in Sena nations. That being said, I would now like to talk about not exactly someone like Laura Wolferhart, not exactly someone like Alyssa Perry. This is Bangladesh's Alyssa Perry and Bangladesh's Laura Wolferhart. And I'm talking about Juairiya Ferdous. Juairiya Ferdous, at the age of 20, before the T20 World Cup, had only played 17 T20 internationals for her country. She made her debut against Netherlands in the tournament opener for both Bangladesh and Netherlands. And as Abhishek had mentioned earlier, in that match, Netherlands scored 139 for 8 with captain Babette de Leede, Bas de Leede's cousin, scoring 50 of 45. And when Bangladesh came out to chase, Juairiya Ferdous was at the forefront of it all. But before she even could wield her bat and score a few runs, a very interesting fact about her is that at the 2023 Bangladesh Youth Games, she won gold in field hockey, she won gold in kabaddi, and she won gold in shot put. So, just like Laura Wolferhart and Alyssa Perry, she could have made a career in sports, in another sport apart from cricket. Such is the talent that this woman possesses. However, she came out to bat chasing 140. Ferdous made 50 of 33 balls on her T20 World Cup debut at the age of 20. It included 7 fours and 2 sixes, and unfortunately she got out right after scoring her 50, and Bangladesh even wobbled. When she got out, they were 67 for 1, out of which she had scored 50. And then from 67 for 1, they collapsed to 85 for 4. However, Sharmeen Akhtar and Shorna Akhtar, not related to each other, finished the game off with a few balls to spare. But Juairiya Ferdous won the man of the match. And she could very well have been man of the match in a hockey game, in a kabaddi game, or even a shot put game. But she, just like Laura Wolferhart and Alyssa Perry, chose cricket. The significance of this innings by Juairiya Ferdous was that it allowed Bangladesh to start their tournament off with a win. And what they achieved later is that for the first time in their history, they were able to record 2 wins in a T20 Women's World Cup when they defeated Pakistan in the group stages. But now that we have discussed Bangladesh and Juairiya Ferdous's brilliance, let's move on over to Scotland.
Thank you, Hassan. That was a wonderful story about Bangladesh team. You were very true about multiple wins that Bangladesh had this season. I was very much rooting for Netherlands that match, because see, they were debuting in that match, right? And I was just hoping that Netherlands could cross the line. But as you said, the actors that were not related has got the team cross the line, right? Coming to Scotland team, you might have heard the Bryce sisters, right? They were the backbone of the Scotland team And tune because they used to play a lot of they used to spend a lot of time there in the English domestic circuit, right? And they were the front runners of the Scotland team over the years. But what stood out this season is the 19-year-old batter Darcey Carter, right? She is among the top 5 run scorers in the World Cup with 208 runs at an average of 43, right? Uh, she even scored a streak 50 against Sri Lanka that they were about to, like, they fell short of, but uh, her performance throughout the World Cup has been phenomenal. Where you might have seen Sarah Bryce in WP for Delhi Capitals, and Catherine Bryce. She is a top all rounder. Like, she bowls first over and she comes one down to bat. They were not the headlines this time. It was Darcey Carter and her performance that made to secure their first win also against Ireland this season. So these are the stories that makes us feel wanting to uh, tell more people about this one. And they also came toe to toe against the England team that at one time they felt that they could beat their arch rivals, England, right? So these are the stories that makes us feel hooked to the TV, and then also makes us feel wanting to tell other people's or kids to take up these sports. So and Scotland did not try to mimic what others do, like for example Australia or this one. They were in their own self and trying to come out of their shell to make their spot against this one. So yeah, this is the one story. You literally don't believe that she is among the top 5 run scorers, like the likes of Beth Mooney and Danny Whitehorse, right? So this story made me think about, even though you are an associate nation player, but if you want to do that, you have if you take courage to do anything, then you can do these things. So that's the thing from Scotland. Then I would like Hassan to continue story of a player who single-handedly turns the game for their team. Every time she plays, she looks like a Sanat Jayasuriya of Sri Lanka women team.
One thing that I would also like to add before talking about the Sanat Jayasuriya of the women's team is that we saw Darcey Carter finish in the top 5, belonging to an associate nation, and we also saw Orla Prendergast complete 2000 plus T20 I runs for an associate nation. So these are two very significant achievements in the associate game. And I also think that we need to understand that we also saw associate nations exceed expectations in the last men's T20 World Cup. And now we're seeing the women's associate nations also do the same. So it's a very encouraging sign that for the growth of the game and for the inclusivity of the associate nations, that their players are performing extremely well. Now, I would like to switch over and end our episode on Sri Lanka. For a decade, in my opinion, Sri Lanka were one player. Juairiya Tapatu scored, they had a chance. If she failed, they folded. Every opponent knew the plan that, like, if you got Juairiya out, you pretty much have Sri Lanka in your pocket. But in this T20 World Cup, we saw that script change. I would like to focus on 2 games specifically. First and foremost, Sri Lanka came up against defending champions New Zealand. Now, New Zealand had already lost their first 2 games, so you can say they were like wounded champions. But they came up against New Zealand and Sri Lanka were 55 for 4. The required run rate was climbing. And this is the sort of situation where you'd usually see Sri Lanka give up or not be able to carry on. And if you're 55 for 4, it means Juairiya is already out. But walk in Nilakshika Silva. Nilakshika Silva walked in, as I said, at 55 for 4. And from there, she scored 54 of 37, which was her best ever international innings. And she stayed there till the end and chased it down with 2 balls to spare. Sri Lanka had defeated the defending champions and all but confirmed that New Zealand are out of the tournament. 11 days later, Sri Lanka come up against Scotland. This game, you would expect Sri Lanka to be a little bit more comfortable, but they were 118 for 6, chasing 152. What happens there? Silva comes in and she holds the lower order together with an unbeaten 21 not out. Now, the 21 not out may not seem as impressive as their 50 against New Zealand, but what it does is that it provides support to Chamari. Chamari does most things. She also had another brilliant tournament. This is not to say that Chamari did not do well, but Chamari finally has someone she can lean on in the middle and lower order. And Silva did exactly that. With that unbeaten 21, it went to the last over, but her and Sukantika Kumari ensured that Sri Lanka got over the line with one ball to spare. Why did I use these two examples? Because these two situations, where there is a top order collapse or there is a lower order rescue act needed, Sri Lanka did not have anyone. But now they have Nilakshika Silva. And that for me is a huge victory for Sri Lanka. And now they have a future to build towards with someone that they can rely on in the middle order. Now that I've spoken about Sri Lanka and Silva's prominence or rise to the top, Abhishek wants to quickly talk about his Sri Lankan story and what he thinks stood out for him. And maybe, as I mentioned earlier, there might be a bonus story too.
Yes, Hassan. Thank you for this story of Silva that you are talking about. I would like to quickly tell a story about Chemari Atupatu's 100 in Bristol. She even has 100 in the 50-year World Cup at the very same venue, right? And right before this 100, when she was talking to a press, she told that if Sri Lanka is not going ahead, it's because of me. And she took the blame on herself. That as someone who is cricket player, who has playing the cricket, feels so much courage, right? Because she took blame on herself as a leader, and the very next match she comes up and scores a blistering 100 and takes the Sri Lanka home. That was really fascinating for me to witness. So this was my story, and I know that there should not be a comparison between male cricketer and the female cricketer. It's just that when she plays, for me, she reminds me of Jayasurya. So that's the Sri Lanka story that I wanted to tell, and the bonus story at the end that I would like to touch upon. Like I was watching the final, right? It was obvious that Australia and England, they were favorites and they were unbeaten throughout the tournament to come up to the finals. And at the end, one has to lose to get to the trophy. And it was a mighty Australia that we have already all witnessed, be it men's team or the women's team. I would rather say women's team are more ruthless than the men's team, in my opinion, because in the 10 editions they have won 7, and the other 3 times they were finalists, and the remaining 2 they were semi-finalists. So you can clearly see the dominance of Australia. I don't want to talk about, everyone talks about that. I want to talk about the captain who recently got appointed like 6 or 7 months back, when Alyssa Healy chose to step away from the cricket, right? Everyone criticized the choice. There were there were talks of Ash Gardner and so on. But what made me feel inspiring about her journey is she is also constantly juggling through her injuries throughout the period 21 to 24. She came from a dark rehab, recovering from tearing from ACL and fractured foot, continuously doubting whether she could come again or not. From there to lifting the World Cup is something that I find it fascinating from a cricket point of view. And I saw the small story about her dream of watching a cricket match at Lord's with her father has come a long way then to the lifting a trophy for her nation. Everyone's dream must be this one, like having to watch a match to lifting a trophy is something we all crave for. So that was my story on Sophie Molineux. That's a bonus story. And also, because we talked about the underdog stories and the themes that are this one, I'll also quickly touch upon the Pakistan's brave captain that I talk about everyone, Fatima Sana. Even when she captaincy, there are a lot of chop and changes in the management, and they coming to the tournament, they did well against the Zimbabwe tour and so on. But it's about it's about her story that who lost her father recently and had to join the team and then lead, and she was the only lone warrior in the team, if I say this tournament. At the end they got their one win to their tournament run, but I would like you to talk about Pakistan much more than what I can talk about it.
Look, you're absolutely right. I agree that Fatma Sana was the lone warrior. When Pakistan came into this tournament, actually, a lot of us felt that this team has a decent chance to progress at least to the knockout stages. The reason for that was that, we had a very clear core. We had Muniba Ali, we have Alia Riaz, we have Fatma Sana, we have Sadia Iqbal, we have Diana Beg. And it was like, okay, we have a strong fast bowling leader, we have a strong spinner, we have a strong all rounder, and we have a very strong middle order batter in Alia Riaz, and we have Muniba at the top. However, I wouldn't say that Muniba didn't perform. Muniba did put up her hand wherever and whenever she could. She plays as an opener. She comes in at riskier times. But Alia was really poor, really, really poor, I'm sorry to say. A lot of disciplinary questions around her performance as well, though I did not appreciate the trolling she received online. Diana was not up to the mark. Sadia was decent, but not, you can't expect Sadia to be doing well in English conditions. But throughout it all, there was one person that constantly put their hand up, and that was Fatma Sana. And what was really encouraging from a player development point of view is that her performances were noticed, and she was signed by Birmingham Phoenix through a wildcard entry in the 100. And now, with Pakistan's T20 series coming up, the Pakistani Cricket Board has allowed her to skip that series and play the 100 for exposure and for development. I hope that this acts as inspiration for the rest of the players. The chopping and changing in Pakistan cricket is a constant, but it seems right now, at least at the top with the chairmanship and the selectors and the board of high performance and all of that, they're going to remain the same. A really encouraging sign is that the Pakistani Cricket Board just last year has given the Karachi facilities and the Karachi stadium exclusively to the women, which is a great move in order to encourage their growth, in order to encourage their training. They also will have residences there so that they can completely envelop themselves in that environment where they can train and grow. Of course, when you introduce such initiatives, you don't see results straight away. But I'm really excited for Fatma Sana. I'm really excited to see how far she goes. She looks like she has all the ingredients to be a world beater. Kudos to her for bouncing back after her father's passing. I can't even imagine how much strength she has to be able to do that. But she also mentioned in one of her interviews that she's doing it to make her dad proud and that he's watching wherever he is. And I think that that is the definition of strength. I don't want to say any more because I don't want a lot of my personal bias to come across. If we were to talk about Pakistani women's cricket, I would not have a list. I would have a book of complaints. So I don't want to get into that. But on that note, I would like to bring today's episode to an end. Thank you to both of you for our viewers. We are shooting across 3 different time zones in 3 different places and locations. I thank all of you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this short stories episode with us where we tried to bring things to light that were usually not in the spotlight. I would also like to use this opportunity to request ICC to market the World Cup better next time. The World Cup that we had in India was a success. It felt like we could follow it all, but this World Cup wasn't as exciting and did not have the marketing on branding or even the sort of reach and engagement that you would expect or require for the women's game to continue growing. My name is Hassan Ali. I was joined by Sharan Kumar and Abhishek Kalur. Behind the camera, like always, is Rupesh Atmuri. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. We'll speak to you some other time, some other day. This is Cricktake.
We are also available on the audio platforms such as Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Music. Please do subscribe and follow us on those platforms as well.